Okay, welcome back to Miss Curtis's art class. Today we are going to make a really interesting picture that's going to be 1-point perspective, which means that all of the lines within the picture are heading in one direction. They're going right towards the 1 point in the middle. And we are going to basically be making these three-dimensional boxes that kind of look like they're exploding from that 1 point and coming out towards us. We're going to also design the tops of those boxes using interesting different line designs. So we're gonna have a lot of fun doing this. I recommend using a pencil to start. Once you like your design, you can go over it with either a thin Sharpie or a marker or a pen. And then we are also gonna do some coloring with either colored pencils or crayons to do some really interesting shading techniques. Okay, so let's start by making our 1-point perspective. Like I said, it should be somewhere towards the middle of the paper. I want my picture to be a little interesting, so I don't want to make it directly in the middle, maybe over a tiny bit to the right at the bottom. I'm going to do a dot right there. Again, I do recommend using a ruler to make these straight lines that you're going to do. I suggest making squares on your paper or rectangles, and I would say about 15 to 20 of different sizes, and I'm going to show you what that looks like, okay? So I'm going to start with one right about here, and they're going to be rotated in different ways. So I'm just going to use my ruler and make straight lines and make a square shape or a rectangle shape. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm holding my ruler nice and tight and I'm pulling my pen right now. Okay, so that's one of them. Now, like I said, I'm going to rotate them, put them all different spots. Again, try to avoid this section right here, make them towards the outskirts of the paper, and I'm gonna speed this up and show you how that looks. Okay, so as you can see, I've made between 15 to 20 square / rectangle shapes that are floating in this space around this dot that, like I said, you want it somewhere towards the center of the paper. It can be shifted a little bit to the right or to the left for interest purposes. I even made some of these squares, rectangles going off the edge of the paper because it's a little bit more interesting for the design. So the tops of these, we are going to make different designs on, different line designs, different dot designs. I'm gonna do some of those first, and then I'm gonna show you how to do the 1-point perspective. I think it might be easier right now just to focus on these flat squares / rectangles and making the design on the top. Okay, so I'm just going to start with, for example, this one right here. I want you to try to challenge yourself to make different designs in each one, so don't repeat the same thing. So here I am going to just use my marker if you have a pencil, and then afterwards you can go over it. I'm just gonna do like swirls. You can kind of make stuff up as you go. And I'm gonna do swirls through the whole top. Maybe I'll make this one more thin and I'll do a pattern. So a pattern is something that repeats. So now this one I will make thicker and I'll go over it one more time. So you can do some really interesting things and you can try to push yourself to think creatively of like, how can you make an interesting design, something a little bit different. This one thin. And you can just practice using different line designs, right? So you could do diagonal, all sorts of stuff. Okay, and then in between these, maybe I'll just do some dots. So right there, I have one unique design on this square / rectangle. Okay, and now I'm gonna move to another one. I will speed this up so you can see how they look at the end. Okay, so that's the designs I chose to do for the tops of these squares, rectangles. Now, every single point that you see that is facing this dot, so for example, this one is not facing the dot, but these ones are, is going to connect to that dot. So I'm gonna show you how this is gonna look. So let's start with this small square right here. So this is facing this dot. So since it's 1 point perspective, I need a ruler, and I'm going to hold this nice and tight and make sure that it's aligned from the dot to this edge. And I'm going to draw a straight line right there. I'm also going to do the same thing. Like I said, this is facing the dot. So I'm going to pull that right there. And I'm going to do this side right here. So it's going to be a little tricky for you to kind of look around and figure out which sides are facing the dot. So these essentially, again, these are going to be like exploding boxes coming out of this dot 1 point perspective. So here we go. Here's another example. This larger one right here. This corner is facing the dot. I'm going to pull these edges right here. Okay. And everything is going to that 1 point because it's 1 point perspective. Please be aware that if there's a box in the way, you have to hop over it. So what do I mean by that? So like this one right here. So I'm not gonna draw through this box, but I'm gonna align to the dot. Whoop, that corner right there. Okay, there's a box there, so I'm gonna hop over and continue, okay? So I'm going to, so again, I'm gonna stop it right there because that box is there. I would do all of the ones that are closest, and then I would work my way towards the ones further back. So for example, I'm gonna work on this one right here. And that's a tiny line. Look how thin that is, right? So once you get to the outer ones, you're gonna notice some of them are gonna stop because they're gonna hit the front boxes. So I'm gonna speed this up, and then, like I said, can't wait to see how yours come out. I recommend doing pencil first and erasing if you make a mistake, and then going over everything with a Sharpie or a pen. Okay, so as you can see, all of them have been connected if they had a corner or an edge that was facing the dot. So this obviously, when they're further back, they cannot. Remember to do the ones that are closest to the dot first, because these ones that are further away, they don't go through the box in the front. That takes precedence. So you can see that right here, I stopped it right when it got to that edge. Same with a lot of them, okay? So just make sure you're very careful of that. Okay, so now is the fun part. You can use any materials, like I said, something that you can shade with. So maybe like either crayons or colored pencils. Today I'm just gonna use some simple crayons, and I am going to start to color in the areas that are coming from the top of the box all the way down. So these sections right here. I'm gonna do a little bit of shading too to have some fun. So for this one, I'm gonna take purple and blue. These are close on the color wheel next to each other, right? So I'm going to work with these. These are gonna blend nicely together. And I'm gonna start right here. I'm going to just color in this part. Oh, we're gonna leave all the tops completely white with the black pen, okay? So you don't have to color those at all, just the parts that are exploding out from the point. So I'm going to shade this down, and I'm going to speed it up in a minute for you so you can see how some of these are going to look. So I'm going to shade this down. Take your time with this, okay? So I'm going around the edges first, being very careful, coloring up and down. I'm not scribbling, and I'm not leaving any white spaces. So I'm just going like this. And like I said, crayons work just fine. So if you don't have colored pencils and you're working with crayons or vice versa, it's totally fine. So I'm going to now use the blue, and I'm going to start towards the bottom and bring it up. And then when they meet in the middle, I'm going to kind of blend them together to the best of my ability, which means I'm going to kind of just layer them into each other. I actually think the crayons are pretty cool. I mean, colored pencils will work great too. So now I've got this like purpley blue. I'm going to lightly just let it fade away. And you can even make it darker down here from the middle if you want. You can kind of work with the colors in interesting ways, okay? So I'm going to start to color this in. I'm going to speed it up, and I can't wait to see how yours come out. So as you can see, these are coming out very cool with the colors and how they're kind of blending on top of each other. Again, I'm starting with one color, usually a lighter color, and then just kind of going on top of the other as I move my way up. So I can't wait to see how yours comes out, and I look forward to next week's lesson.